Hamakavi Barzel presents Rabbi Nachum Shifren, Torah scholar, author, public speaker, and good friend of the late Rabbi Meir Kahana.
Well, Shavuot Tov. Actually, Shavuot Tov was a couple days ago, but we're going to go retroactively to last week's Parsha. First of all, good evening. Welcome one more time to the JDL podcast. And we're very grateful to Natasha Devine for all of her work and self-sacrifice in getting this out there. I apologize for being a little intermittent regarding our delivery here. Things happen in life, but we are ever on the move here, and we are always working to enhance and make greater the reception of our podcast to the general public. Having said that, a lot of Jews, a lot of people, when they read this, if they really read the Parsha of VAYISLACH, VAYISLACH is talking about when Jacob sent messengers to his brother Esau, and everybody knows that Esau was going to kill Jacob. Wow. A brother wants to kill another brother. Where have we heard that story before, right? And it's an interesting thing that happens there, but let's talk about a couple things. This is a parsha that rabbis are scared to death of, and anybody that deals with the Jewish congregations or the Jewish communities, they're not going to touch this, because this goes to the heart and the substance of what it means to be a Jew and what a Jew should know and do in this world. Okay? I have my own feelings about it. I'm going to tell you how I feel based on my friendship and knowing Rabbi Meir Kahana, Hashem Yikum Damo, and knowing his writings and knowing what he said and what he would have said. I was there to hear it all. Not just the only one. There's a whole bunch of people out there, but time goes by, and as we know, when time goes by, people forget. But we don't ever forget. The people that are with Rabbi Kahana, the people of the JDL, we have a long memory, and we never forget. One of the things that's troubling a lot of Jewish leaders and a lot of Jewish rabbis here is a very amazing statement, so amazing that it's, if you look in the Torah and the Hebrew writing of this parsha, this meeting of Jacob and Esau, it shows that, first let's go back a little bit. And Jacob received word from one of his emissaries that Esau was coming toward him with 400 mounted men, meaning soldiers. And Jacob was shivering in his boots. He thought, what did he do to deserve this? Hashem told him that he was going to guard him and keep him healthy and alive. And now it looks like something is going on here. So Jacob did something that is a classical Jewish concept. He did three things. He divided the children and his daughters, his daughters, and their maidservants into three different groups, right? One bearing gifts for Esau and giving him all kinds of honors and bowing down to him, etc., making him feel like a real big shot. And each of these three groups, there was dozens or hundreds of camels and donkeys and dates and figs and wheat and pomegranates. And this was known as a doron. It's a gift. There's three things that a Jew is commanded to do when dealing with the kingship or foreign kings or people that potentially could be adverse to the Jewish people. So one is a gift. So each one of these groups gave different gifts to Esau. Another thing that one is commanded to do is to pray. Jacob prayed, his daughters prayed, his wives prayed, everybody prayed to God to save them from the hand of Esau. That's 2. Number 3, get ready for war. If nothing works, you have to have a plan C here. And he did. It was an unusual arrangement. He would be, his wife Rachel would be the last of the 3 groups and protected by her son Joseph, who, as we will recall, was quite the momentous savior of the Jewish people in coming chapters. So those are the 3 things that need to take place in such an eventful meeting like Esau. By the way, Esau represents or is symbolic of the Gentile nations, meaning the Romans, the Greeks, that sort of thing, right? Talks about it in the Parsha. Rashi mentions it when Esau was born, and other places. So here we have this dynamic going on. Esau appears to be intent on killing Jacob. After all, Jacob did steal the firstborn, the right of the firstborn. Didn't really steal it, but it looked like it. So when they finally meet, after Esau is beguiled by all the royal treatment that he gets from the different factions, Esau puts his arm around Jacob, kisses him, and what happens then is a historical monument in the development of the Jewish people. Rashi, our commentator on the Bible, our main commentator, who we believe was divinely inspired, says this, and right above the words in Hebrew in the Torah, there are little dots. Very unusual. I don't recall any place else in the Torah where you have dots above the words in Hebrew, kind of like a little code. And so Rashi tells us, he quotes Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rabbi, the great Rabbi, and he quotes them saying something that's absolutely amazing. Esau, halacha v'yadua. Halacha, it's a halacha, it's a Jewish law, it's a mandate. V'yadua, and it's known. Esav soneh the Yaakov. Esau hates Jacob. But he was crying and this and that. So the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, no, he was only doing that at the moment, but his hatred of Jacob never stopped. Why am I focusing in on this? This is a very nuance-filled issue. A lot of ramifications, sociological, philosophical, something that is so hard to grasp, and yet the Jewish people have been living with this over their necks for 2,000 years. And that is that we live, without going into a whole history of where we are, why we're here, we live among the Gentile nations. And it's always been a high wire act in every generation. Every generation has its dealings with non-Jews. And for the most part, we saw, for example, in Spain, we saw in Rome, we saw in other places in the world where the Jews were welcome to a point. For many, many hundreds of years, they weren't allowed to own land. They could only deal with money, right? Among the Christians, it was believed that money is the root of all evil, right? So they let the Jews deal with the money. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. So getting back to the point I'm trying to raise here is that many of us have wonderful, amazing non-Jewish friends, including myself. What we need to do is realize who we are. The only way that we can stay, by the way, that hatred of that Esau has towards the Jewish people, I'm going to say it. I've said it, I've heard it in other places. I've read about it, studied it. This has been a method by which the Jewish people have been saved. from assimilation. If the Gentiles loved us, we would no longer be a people. I think there's a lot of, if you really think about it and you really research this, you'll see it's true. There are many, many, many ways in which we are, our whole lifestyle, that is to say, those people that abide by Torah mandates and try to, study Torah, try to learn the laws, try to abide by them. All these things are keeping us as a people. The hatred of Esau toward Jacob will never subside. But what will keep us alive is not an army trying to fight Gentiles. That's not going to happen. We don't have the strength, we don't have the manpower or the resources to do that. You have to ask yourself, there's been 5 wars in the Middle East. There's 150 billion Muslims and 5 million Jews in Israel. You're not going to get any odds in Las Vegas on that kind of a confrontation. You have to ask yourself, well, how is it that Israel is still alive? How have they survived? Through a series of miracles, which of course many people just take for granted. Miracles from God. But again, if there was never this barrier between us and the Gentile nations, we would certainly assimilate. And we've seen it. In the United States of America, assimilation is about 60%. According to those numbers, the Jewish people in America will be pretty much of a survival issue in terms of numbers. Now, there's been a renaissance, of course, of as of late, the last 20 or 30 years. We see a lot more people going to shul and whatnot, but the vast majority of the Jewish people in the United States want nothing to do with that. And I'm just here to say the way it is. And this aversion or this animosity of Esau toward Jacob, meaning us, in these days, is something that's very perplexing. It bothers a lot of people. Our job is to be ourselves, be who we are, not to fake it and think that we're different than who we are. The one thing I can tell you that a Gentile respects is self-respect. Rabbi Kahana taught us that at the very beginning. If you want respect, you better have self-respect. If the Gentile thinks that there's anything about you that you don't like, personally, about who you are, your identity, you're not going to get very far in that sphere. So this story of Esau and Jacob is something that is absolutely part and parcel of our survival wherever we are in the world. Until the Messiah comes, we're destined to be outsiders. And thank God we are, because the Gentile knows who we are and we know who they are. And how do we know all these things? Because we read the Torah and we study the Torah. And this is something that each person in the JDL and each person outside the JDL needs to be very familiar with. We can't rest on our laurels on the Israeli Air Force is the greatest in the world and the Israeli fighters. No, that's not going to keep us alive. Some of the most outrageous things in the world have been done in the name of the Israeli army, the Israeli military, the Israeli government. We don't want to go into too many of those, but we know as a fact that the Yom Kippur War didn't need to happen. Golda Meir back then knew about the war, about the plans for the war a day before the attack, and she did nothing. Why? She was worried about what the Gentiles are going to say if she called up the reserves. Same thing here with the October 7th. The investigative committee has yet to draw their conclusions on that. I will stick my neck out and say, if we ever hear of anything, it'll be a whitewash. We're never going to get to the bottom of it. I believe in my heart that this thing was a manifestation of corruption in the Israeli government, trying to get rid of Bibi Netanyahu, trying to besmirch him, and a whole bunch of malevolent people at the top. And my question is, Why is this war taking more than 2 years? Right? We were giving them diapers. We were giving them baby food, giving them gas, oil, powdered milk. Who ever heard of a war like that? So this thing about being, subservient to the Gentiles, it's real. It's there. All the United Nations has to do is say boo, and Israel starts to get worried. That's the problem here. Rabbi Kahana was a thorn in the side of the Jewish establishment more than anything. The Gentiles looked at him as kind of a weirdo, but it was the Jewish establishment that put the nail in Rabbi Kahana's coffin. Let's be clear about that. If we all learned the Torah, if we all were obedient to Hashem, if we were all of one mind about who we are and what we are, and who the Arabs are and what they are, there'd be no war, there'd be no nothing. What's the proof? I have friends in Elon Moreh. Some of you know Elon Moreh. It's near Shechem, where last week's Parsha, Yaakov entered the land of Israel. He bought a plot in Shechem for 10 kashita. And Shechem, of course, it belongs to the Jewish people forever, as does Jerusalem and as does Hebron. This is stated in the Talmud, and it's a fact. They were paid for it by cash. But after the 6-day war, that miraculous war, I have friends that sent their daughters to Shechem. Shechem is now a snake pit of murderers and rapists and terrorists. You go in there, you're not going to come out alive. But after that 6-day war, my friend sent his 8-year-old daughter to Shechem to buy grapes. The Arab was so afraid of the Jews, they rightly were afraid of the Jews, because the Jews won that war in 6 days, right? And they knew it was a miracle. And the daughter said, we need 1 kilo of grapes. The Arab gave the daughter 2 kilos just so there would not be a faint matter of a mistake on the transaction. So instead of she paid for 1, she got 2. That tells you that this is something that was real. The fear of God that the Arabs had after the 6-day war. Fast forward to nowadays, it is absolutely amazing that we would have a Secretary of State of the United States tell the Jewish people that the West Bank does not belong to the Jewish people, meaning Judea and Samaria. This is where all of our Jewish history takes place. It doesn't take place in Tel Aviv and Haifa, right? There's no Jewish history down there, other than people that run away from Judaism and hang out down there. But Judea and Samaria, known as the West Bank, that's where everything takes place. And we have a state, a Secretary of State declaring that Israel will not occupy or claim sovereignty over these lands. Why would he do that? And why would the Israelis accept that? Answer: because if you don't have self-respect, nobody will respect you. This is the answer to that. Anyway, we want to close with a few words about Hanukkah. Hanukkah is coming up in about 1 week. And Hanukkah is a great miracle. Rabbi Kahana once said that Hanukkah is the easiest holiday for the Jewish people, right? All you have to do is light a candle and then you go to a movie or something. But that was a laughing way, but it's an amazing, if you look at the Gemara, the Talmud, it talks about Hanukkah, it just talks about the miracle. It doesn't talk about the winning of the war. Nothing about the Maccabees, incidentally, in terms of the momentous occasion that it was. But Hanukkah is coming up, and Hanukkah is what Rabbi Kahana used to tell us. Hanukkah, the Greeks were in charge of the Middle East back then, and the Greeks loved the Jews. They loved the fact that they were very studious and very scholarly. They really respected that in the Jewish people, and that's true. Everything is true about that. But the one thing that they did not want the Jewish people to say is that the Torah came from God, because they, of course, had idols. They were big idol worshipers. So it went like a rope-a-dope. It went back and forth, and we've coined the term Hellenism, Hellenistic, right? Hellenistic means Greek-like, like the Greeks. And there was quite a few Jews that fell for the Chokhmat HaChitzonim, the study of Greek literature, of Greek art, of Greek philosophy. And that, of course, was anathema to anybody that believed in the Torah. It was a big problem. And so this victory of the light over darkness, symbolized by the Hanukkah candles, was real. And it was very, very symbolic of the war that the Jews wage in every generation, a war that is not won so much by force of arms, but rather by our cleaving to God, to the Torah, learning His Torah, learning with our children, etc. I wish everybody a wonderful Hanukkah. As you light those lights, think of that light over darkness, the darkness caused by the Greek hegemony over the land of Israel, and lit up by the Hanukkah lights, by the oil in the Holy Temple. Light over darkness is the theme here. God bless everybody. Happy Hanukkah. I wish everybody, of course, a Shabbat Shalom.